No jokes. But we are really elite around here. Okay, guys, I have Melissa here. She's been one of my favorite clients that I have gotten to serve in the last, I don't know, when did you first reach out to me?
I think it was about, I'm going to say 8 months ago now.
Yeah, probably about 8 months. It's been so cool serving you because you were like, Liv, how do I get more? Liv, what else can I do? Liv, how can I compound my money more? And it was quite funny, your story, because we had you around leaving your, I remember it was you leaving your job as well. And so we had to balance out, having one income and building a property portfolio. So I'm really interested and keen to see the impact of your story and of what you're about to share today. So, guys, welcome to Melissa. Melissa, hello, how are you?
Hello, lovely. I'm great, thank you, and very grateful to be here with you and co-serving.
Co-serving, you are. You're
Co-serving.
also changing and impacting lives in your world and your business and what you do as well. And such an inspirational female also. So, tell the people who are watching this, give us a quick little introduction of yourself. What did you do for your old job that you just left? Why did you leave it? What are you doing now? Just tell us about your family. Where do you live?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Melissa. I'm a mum to two beautiful little children. So we've got a boy and a girl. Our boy has just turned 2, and our girl is 4. And I was in the corporate world for 20, yeah, just over 20 years, and worked for incredible companies. Was very, very grateful for the time that I spent in corporate. But when we had our second child, something just shifted, and I was like, I cannot do corporate anymore. I can't be the mum that is like dropping her children off to before and after school care and traveling interstate and overseas and all the things. And we had our children through IVF over a 5-year journey, and it was really hard, like, I'll be honest with you. So I was like, I didn't work that fucking hard to have the children to then like never be available in their lives, and doing the 80 to 100-hour weeks was like, that was inevitable. And yeah, it was just like, hard no, like, this is not going to be my future, and this is not going to be my children's future. So I was on mat leave, and I was literally like googling like high income online jobs, because I was making like 3 to 400k in my old job. I knew that I didn't want to sacrifice financially, and I also knew that I wanted to do something in the online space because we wanted the flexibility with the kids to live wherever we wanted to live. And throughout the whole COVID situation, we ended up moving up to northern New South Wales. So yeah, I just knew like I didn't want to be going into offices. I didn't want to be locked and fixed into a location. So yeah, literally started Googling, and then found the most incredible mentor, incredible global business, and yeah, like, was able to quit my corporate job 6 months into that journey because of the financial certainty that I had. And I'm literally mentored now by one of the top 1% globally, and it's changed my life. It's changed the like trajectory of my family's life. Like, yeah, like so many other women, there's actually like purpose and service these days versus just selling software gadgets, that I feel like that was just like bankrupting my soul back in the days. And yeah, like, it's just a complete transformation to where I was like 14 months ago. So yeah, that's a little bit
Wow.
about my background.
Good on you. What a leap of faith. Like, it takes courage to go 20 years of corporate and safe income to being like, oh, and now I'm going to start this business. And now I'm also going to become a property investor at the same time. So, question for
Totally
you.
right.
At that moment, when you were like, I'm leaving my job and I'm going to be a property investor, because obviously this is about like property investing as well. Sorry for those who are business owners, but we also really like business because that's where we make a lot of money too, and have freedom. So tell us, what was your reasoning behind wanting to get into property investing at the same time as wanting to leave your 9 to 5 job and start a business?
Yeah,
Because that's
so
good.
great question. And it was ironic because all these things came together at like a similar time. So whilst all that was happening in the background with like quitting my job, finding my online business, we had also found out through a friend that there was a way to invest in property that you could do with trusts, where you essentially had this like infinite borrowing loop and you could keep borrowing money. And at the time, well, a little bit before the time that I met you, we had two properties, but we had tapped out on our borrowing capacity with the banks, and that was both as high income earners, right? Like me in the corporate role, and my partner was doing FIFO back in the day, so he was making, I don't know, like 200-300K. So the bank said, no,
Whoa.
you can't borrow anymore. And
Hang on,
we
so you're on
were,
like 300-400 grand and he's on like 200K.
yeah.
And you only had two properties and the bank said you couldn't borrow any more back then.
Yeah, they were, yeah, like reasonably priced properties. We were living in one of them and the other one was rented out. And yeah, to be able to buy another property at a similar price value to the other two, the banks basically said, no, you wouldn't be able to do that. And then I was like, oh, what do we do? Do we like move out of the one that we live in and rent that out? But in the area, the rental return wasn't that great. And then, yeah, and then I just had this friend tell me about, he was like, watch this YouTube video, and it was literally this guy like Google, like writing on a whiteboard and explaining trust structures and stuff. And I was like, oh, I was pinned to it. And then I was like, why did I know this? And I was like, I wish we set up our property like this from day one, because this actually wouldn't be an issue right now. And then I was like, and then we were moving into state, so we were like, okay, let's just sell the property that we lived in. It was tax free, so that was a no brainer. And then yeah, we moved up here, we sold the other property, and then not long after that, I came across you, and then I was like, I need someone that's actually like knows the next couple of steps ahead of me, because this is what you do day in, day out. I'm like, it took me like 5 years to work out this trust thing, and if I'd known that 5 years ago, we wouldn't have done what we would have, like we did. And I'm grateful for that, because we did really well with the property in Brisbane and the one in Melbourne. But how you start in property is like so important. It's like your foundations, right? You can't build off like something that's going to bottleneck you, and that's where we'd got to. So yeah, when all that stuff was happening with like quitting corporate, moving, we also had the property stuff happening. That video got shown to me, and then yeah, I was just like, sell everything and then let's start again. And then yeah, that was basically like the strategy was to do everything properly through trust structures, so that we're never going to run out of borrowing capacity based on our incomes again, but also then learning that through trusts, once they get to a certain point, they're treated like a business, and trusts can then borrow and continue to borrow based on their own income versus you actually needing to be employed, or whatever you're making. So yeah, and then I came across you. I think I shared the video with you. You were like, holy shit, not many people know about this. I'm like, I know, that's why I'm so grateful to have found you. And then that's how it all began.
And then we went really deep into the trust thing because I know that you were like watching my trust training and
Yeah.
you just like next rabbit hole. And I'm like, oh, steady up
Yeah, well,
there, cowboy.
that's right, because that was when I'd quit my job. So all of a sudden, like, we had sold these properties and we had a lot of borrowing capacity, but then I quit my job, and we also made the decision with my partner that he was no longer going to do FIFO with the kids. So we went from this like great borrowing capacity to not having a great borrowing capacity. And then I very much saw trusts as the avenue to be able to build on things, maybe not as quick as what we'd done before, but in a more like sustainable long-term way.
Yeah, well done. And like that is not financial advice, people. Please do your homework on trust. I must put that in there. That's not financial advice. So trusts are extremely complex. And you definitely need to have a lot of education around the pros and the cons. And if you want that, click the link below, comment the word trust, and I will send you my trust training on that, on what Melissa's talking about. So, okay, so Mel, back to you.
Mhm.
So if we go back a step, so you're in the middle of leaving a job, corporate job, you started the process of property investing, and now we've purchased a property for you, which is just, when did it settle? Was it last week?
It
The week
was
before?
maybe 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, right. We purchased you a property. I'm going to bring up the numbers actually. So we purchased you a property at around $405,000 in SA, South
Mhm.
Australia, that is. And your ROI on that is going to be 36%. How did you feel when you were just like, I'm going to get 36% return on my money in year one?
Amazing. Like, this is like one of the things that I love like supporting women with is how do you create wealth and how do you leverage other teams to do that? So it's like you get to make 36% by basically leveraging a team and doing something that you love, like buying property, allowing someone else to have a roof over their head. Like it's freaking incredible.
Yeah. I'm so proud of you as well because you were always like, how can I get more? How can I get around this? Like whenever you got to a roadblock. and not many people have the mindset around that. Question for you: do you think your experience in the corporate world helped you fast track your results in your property investing journey and your business? Because you were very
Yeah,
successful in your business. That's very hard. Most people, I know your industry quite well and have a lot of clients there, and not many people are as successful as you straight out of the gate. Where do you reckon you had those skills, or where do you think you learnt them to be able to
yeah. So
adapt to both
definitely,
business and investing?
I think one of the things that I've done, and I'm actually writing like a digital guide at the moment that talks, one of the points is talking to this, and I believe it's how, yeah, it's like we go to school, right, and we're taught that university is like the be all and end all, right? If you don't get the good grades and you don't go to university, you're doomed for the rest of your life. And I didn't go to
Done.
university. I got out of year 12 and was like nearly failed. My dad was like, none of my kids are going to live under my roof and not have a job or go to university. So I went and got a commission only job because I was like, that gets dad off my back and I've got a job, right? I'm technically employed. They gave the job to anyone, right? But it solved my problem back when I was 18. And the thing that I learned, like throwing myself into business at a young age, was you don't have to be the smartest person in the room, like, not by any means. You just need to be coachable, you need to be willing, and you need to be hungry for success. And if you just do that, then like success is inevitable, because the reality is like whatever result you want in life, there's people out there that have created it, so it's possible. That's not debatable. It's a case of like, how do you show up and how do you actually learn and surround yourself with the right people. So to answer your question, like, what is it? It's basically being mentored by someone who is incredibly smart in the industry, that's done very well, and that has an entire platform to support and teach people to get the same, to get the same results. So that's basically, how I've done it. And then mindset, it's like, you, as you said before, you don't give up. You know that results are possible, and if you haven't found them, it's like, okay, well, what do you need to change, or who do you need to become in order to get those results? So yeah, with property, it was like, okay, well, I don't have that income anymore, but there's got to be a way. Like, there has to be a way. And then there was. It was like, I just didn't know it at the time, but then I found it, or it found me just by coincidence. But yeah, it's like I've always had this mindset of like, can't doesn't exist. Like, it just doesn't,
Mm.
right? If you put your mind to something and you surround yourself with people that have the results that you want, and then you do the work and you show up, like, it's just a no-brainer. Like, it's going to happen. It's just a case
You're
of
just like a
when.
motivational speaker. Fucking let's just hang out with Cal. No wonder I had so much fun serving you and talking to you all the time. So tell me, what was the concerns before you came to me? What were your biggest worries or concerns about property investing?
um, my
Do you
biggest
think you had any?
concern would have been me as an individual not being able to move as quick or do as good as I wanted to as one individual. Because I
Mm,
tried that, right? Like, we did the buying our own home thing. We did the, the Australian dream, as they call it, save, get a deposit, buy your own house, try and pay it off over 30 years. And then we brought an investment property, and then the lesson from that was that, like, it wasn't scalable, and we couldn't
mm.
really achieve the goals that we wanted to long term based on that structure. And had I had a team and people smarter than me that do this literally every day, I wouldn't have had that lesson.
And now you're a rent investor.
Exactly. Yeah,
You
and,
go.
and
You
soon
don't
to
even
be like
live in a
what
home
I'm
anymore.
calling now like a travel vesta, because we're going to take the van next year and travel with the kids around Australia. So we've got the choice to like rent vest wherever we want, but we're also going to like travel vest and see like the whole of Australia with our children and just like live life.
Hell yeah. Travel Vesta. That's a new one. Oh, I haven't heard that. There you go. We might need to what's that word when no one else can steal the word? You own it.
Well, like
Um
trademark it,
yeah,
copyright it.
trademark
Yeah.
it. Yeah, so cool. I loved it. Okay, cool. So because you came to me pretty bullish, what do you think you learnt the most through working with me?
Oh, there's been so much because we've spoken about so many different topics as well. Like, I would
What's
I
some of
would
your biggest
say like,
takeaways?
pardon?
What's some of your biggest takeaways? First things that kind of come to your mind.
My biggest takeaways are having the right team to support you and the right team that actually know about investing. Because, if I speak to any of the team now that you've connected me with, they all know the things that we talk about. Whereas for context, like, I had a mortgage broker, for example, for, I don't know, 10, 15 years in the other property. He had no idea about these trust structures. Whereas the person that I talked to that I met through you knows all about them. Same with the
Yeah.
accountant. So I think, yeah, one of the most valuable things is actually being like plugged in and connected to other people that are going to help you get the goal through the coaching with you. And then all those short videos that you send as well are absolutely invaluable. Like I was watching the one the other day around how to make trusts more profitable, and I think it was around, say you've got two and you can put the rent from one into the thing from the other. And I was like, holy shit, that's so smart. Like, that would have taken me forever to think of on my own. I was like, I'm so glad I've got these videos.
But
Like,
I'm
it's
just a
sometimes like
hacker.
the simplest things, but they're so smart, and just things that, like, we're all busy in today's day and age. You don't necessarily have time during the day to just turn off your brain and be like, okay, well, what would I do in this scenario with property? Or how would I do that? Or how would I think about that? Because I'm not doing this like every single day. Like, I might buy, I don't know, two or three properties a year, whereas you're helping, people, probably like multiple people every day, settle on properties. So the volume in which you're doing it compared to me is like, I could never do that on my own.
Yeah. You know what? It takes a skill as well, Mel, to like actually, first of all, remove your ego to think that you can do stuff on your own. Because in the Aussie way, we've been taught, save money and don't spend. And people aren't really trained in Australia to think of like, okay, I'm going to outsource it to someone. And the leverage that you talk about, leverage could be leveraging somebody else's money or leveraging someone else's sweat equity or time or experience, which is exactly why you were
Totally.
so, I believe that you're so successful. You just like, well, I'm just going to pay someone to fast track me that's already gone there. So I think well done. There's a
Yeah.
quote from
And I,
another one of my mentors, and she said, "You only have to be one step ahead, just one step ahead, and you only if you know." You ready? Listen. This is what she would always say: if you know something about something, you can teach someone that. So if you know just something about something, you can monetize and create a business around it. And I was just like,
yeah.
that's so fucking cool. How cool is that, right? Anyway, so
Yeah.
I was just like, anyway, so back to you. So, okay, I forgot what you were just saying. And I was like, fuck, that was really juicy just then of what you were just saying. But anyway, so thank you so much for that. I think around the understanding the team and outsourcing it is critical to understand who you're hiring as well. Because to your point, not every broker or not every accountant is as equal as each other. So, what I would recommend for any of those watching this is zoom in on finding an expert that's niched in where you want to go. So, as an example, I always say to people for the brokering thing, so Mel, so most brokers in Australia only serve those who are buying owner occupier. So most transactions, property transactions in Australia, majority of them are for homes, right? Not for investments. And then you've also got brokers who are usually going through the transactions of buying homes, again, not investments. And so the type of loans that the brokers are looking at are very different for investors versus owner occupiers. So that's level one of a niche, right? So make sure that you're using a broker who serves primarily investors, not owner occupiers, if you're going to build a property portfolio. Then, second to that, let's niche down even further. And then the next niche is what property strategy are you going to follow? If you're going to go down negative gearing, yuck, I wouldn't do that, run for the hills. But you then want a broker who's then obviously niched in that. Whereas I teach people how to go into positive gearing strategy and build out a cash flowing property portfolio. Okay, great. So then the loans that you need to have for those from those lenders are very different again. So therefore, you only want a broker who's laser focused, reading every day loans from lenders who are more pro positive for investors who are looking at doing positive gearing strategy. That was a mouthful. So to Mel's point, just because you have someone on your team, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are good enough for you and that they are niched in exactly what you want to do and where you go. It's the same with accountants, right? Most accountants are going to sit there and be amazing for business owners, right? If you have an accountant that is niched in that area, But then you also want to have an accountant, for example, if you're going to do into property investing, you want to make sure that they have a massive property portfolio as well and that they're pro property because most accountants are not pro property. And again, they're more for negative gearing. So it's a really, really good reminder that who you hire is fucking critical to the
Mm.
down to the T. And that, Mel, is what I think you're really good at doing. How did you decide though that I was good enough for you?
You know what it really came down to? It was like the fact that you knew about trust structures, because I'm not going to like underplay this. Like so many people that I spoke to did not know about it. Like my broker did not. I was literally sending him the YouTube videos and I was like, "Can you go and like look at this and work out if I can do this?" And then, there was another guy that I spoke to was part of a local networking group that I was a part of here for a period of time, and he knew a little bit about it, but not much. And again, I was having to feed him information. And then yeah, it was also through the buyer's agents. So we brought both of our properties previously through buyer's agents, and again, I was like, I wanted someone that had a team and that knew what they were doing and that had done it themselves. And yeah, I just came across you online. I liked your vibe. I was like, you're pretty down to the point, like you're a straight shooter. I was like, that's what I'm all about, and you were knowledgeable. So I was like, well, that's good enough for me. I didn't have like an abundance of Olivia's popping into my social media feed. Like, so yeah,
Right.
at that point it was just divine timing, right? Like we had those situations going on that we spoke about before, and I knew that whilst we weren't doing anything with property, that our money was actually going down because of inflation.
Oh, that's funny that you talk about that. Where did you learn that from?
Yeah, you kept telling me, you're like, you got to do this now. You got to get things moving. So yeah, and it was true.
Okay, cool. So the things that made you feel more comfortable was one, it was just happened to be good timing. Exactly
Yeah.
what you were looking for is what I provided. The team, you felt safe that I had the holistic team in everyone and all the check boxes in the
Yeah.
process. And by the sounds of it, the big thing that got you was like knowledge. So you were like, yeah, cool, she has that gap that I didn't know. And
Yeah,
that was kind
you
of
had
like the way
that
I
like credibility and authority, like for me to
yeah.
trust your advice because of, yeah, what you had been building for yourself. So I went and like had a look at, your online presence, and I was like, okay, like, you're pretty young, you're doing well in business, like you've got your head screwed on, all the things I've asked you about, you're sending me little clips, you were expanding my knowledge. And so I was like, yeah, this is someone I want to learn from. This is someone that knows more than me, and I want to learn.
It was so funny because I was like, when I first started my business, I've learned through. Do you know what human design is? Have I talked to you about that?
Yeah, yeah, I love human design. Yeah,
What human design are you?
I'm a generator.
You're a generator. No wonder you wanted knowledge then. Because it's funny because some people are just like, it's either like my energy or it's like with generators, it's always about process or knowledge or
Mm-hmm.
systems. That's why.
Yeah,
There
yeah,
we go.
all about
That
process
answers
as well too.
everything.
So yeah.
You little processing queens. Um, yeah, and then as I was starting my business, I was just like, I can't work with clients who don't see the juicy shit that I can provide. Like, if you don't see that from day dot, I don't want you in my container because you're going to end up impacting everyone else as well. And
Totally.
that's what I loved about you is you've seen me as that authority, and you just fucking love the juicy hacks that I ended up discovering. And you're like, give me more, Olivia. And it's like, okay,
Totally.
here we
Like I'm a
go.
sponge.
You are a sponge. And to your point, you were coachable. There's so many clients that have come to me till today, and they just don't really talk to me or don't ask me questions, or they're not curious enough.
Mm.
And so they're not going to get as much out of me because I provide like a one-on-one service. Like, Mel, you have private access to me one-on-one, and the cool thing was is that you learned so much because you were so curious and you were asking weird questions. I was like, this chick is cool because she's asking me weird shit. And I'm like, that's lighting me up even more. So cool.
Yeah, I'm all about the
Okay,
weird
so let's
shit
talk
that gets us ahead more.
about it.
I'm all about the weird shit that gets us ahead more and
Yeah,
allows
you
us
are.
to help other people as well.
Yes, let's escape us from the matrix. Let's fucking be able to actually be a part of raising our kids. Okay,
Totally.
cool. So I can't remember. I was trying to actually log into your portfolio planner before this call, but I didn't have the time to do that. So, what did your not your SMSF one because you're now going down the track of the SMSF thing? That's cool.
Hmm.
Starting
Yeah.
to plan all that and prep that and set that one up for your next property. What did your portfolio planner end up resulting in? Do you remember?
It was like $2 million after 10 years of,
Equity.
yeah, of available equity.
Amazing. That's so good. And then what do you plan on doing with that?
Well, we're not too sure yet. Like, I love the idea of having another passive income stream because I'm all about, yeah, building passive income streams through property, through business, like all the passive income streams that you can do. And yeah, I'm not sure. Like, our plan at the moment is to travel for a few years with our children and then just see where we want to land. And we might just rent somewhere. We might buy our dream house. Yeah, my partner's really keen on having our dream property one day, so we'll probably do that in a couple of years. And yeah, continue investing so that we're setting our children up even more.
Hell yeah. Well, an extra $2 million that you're making in your sleep, that's pretty good odds in the next 10 years. So can't complain with that. And then it just gives you more
Absolutely.
options of what you want to do with that
Yeah, and then
with
also
that.
like sharing this knowledge with other people. I've got like people in my business now that are in their 20s, and like I think for that generation, there's all this like doom and gloom out there in the media about you're never going to be able to get into the property market. So it's really like helping people demyth that and actually having a plan so that they can buy property early in their 20s, and then that compounds over, decades, and then they create what like so much an abundance of so much wealth.
Yeah. So to your point, Mel, the compounding of real estate kicks in after year 12.
Yeah.
So I always say the easiest way to build wealth is start when you're young. So for me, for example, it's one of the things I kind of just had like this knowing when I was younger. I was like, if I just fucking put my money in here and just like chip away at it from the age of 25, by the time I'm 45, I'll be set up for life. And usually for most people, you need a good 15-year window, sometimes
Hmm.
20 years for most people if you're starting off really, really broken, if you're really, really poor in terms of low incomes. But most people around the 15 years you need of just consistent investing in the background. And all it takes, this is all it really takes, you ready? Which, Mel, you obviously had bought some property, sold two houses, came out with a bit of a cash chunk after selling off those two houses, right? So, and I believe you bought did you buy a caravan? You already
Yeah.
bought that, didn't you? Yeah, great. So you can live your life and live free, right? So all it really takes is you might have an existing property with $200,000 of equity, and that $200,000 of equity, if you just pull that out, that can allow you to buy about 1 to 2 properties inside the top 1% suburbs that on average can get you $100,000 of passive income in roughly 10 to 15 year window. Like that is average property portfolios that like my team build every fucking day that I see. And it's wild to think where people are like, I'm just going to convince myself, or I've already convinced myself to stay working as a little minion in my 9 to 5 job to pay down the debt on my home over 30 years when you could have just built a property portfolio that'll pay it off in for, let's just say, a five or $600,000 mortgage. Most of those people paid off within 10 years or have an investment portfolio paid off in 10 years rather than you sweat equity paid off in 30. Yuck. Anyway, bit of a tangent there. That's why I'm proud of you because also you're just like, I'm going to live and invest and go and travel investor.
Totally.
So yeah, well done. Such an inspiration. You must be proud of yourself.
Yeah, I'm just a big believer in that, like, we don't have to do this whole, you know, 9 to 5 thing if we don't choose to, and that there are ways around it. Like, it's like live your life,
Yeah.
enjoy the younger years. Like, all the people that I speak to that are mums, the majority of them, they're like, number one regret is having their kids, like, missing out on the years with their kids. And it's just like that doesn't have to be the path that you go down. Like there's ways around it. It's like, and yeah, it's just I'm so passionate about that. So passionate about like women not having to sacrifice, whether it's financially, whether it's time, and property is just a huge avenue to be able to do that because it literally makes you money while you sleep.
Yeah, I agree. And it's pretty safe considering non-financial advice. And it's quite easy to make property in Australia. Like Aussies already feel safe with it. It's this weird thing. I was explaining, I actually joined a manifester community over in human design. And it was this global one, and I was on this call, and it was with a whole bunch of other women, and all of the other women were in America, and I was describing what I was doing here in Australia. They're like, why do you need that coach? And I'm like, well, you know what? Fun fact is 90% of millionaires are made from real estate in Australia, right? But in Australia, thanks to our lending and how difficult it is to borrow money, and the reason why I label myself as the leverage queen of Australia is that unfortunately 90% of Aussies get stuck on two properties. In fact, 71%
Mm.
just get stuck on one. And it's so sad because it's like these Aussies are like, well, we know you just make money easily. We don't know, most people don't know how to articulate it, but I want more, but I just have no idea how to get more. And so that gap there is where I come into place to be like, this is how you get more. Let's fucking tweak a couple of these different things. And now look at you. Now you'll be able to scale your property portfolio yourself whilst you're
Well, yeah,
traveling in
I remember
parallel.
like thinking like about people that owned, 10, 20, 30 properties. And I think that's actually how that video came about the trust structures is I was talking to a mate who was quite well connected with people that own a lot of property. And I was like, how do they do it? Like, how do they have 10, 15 properties? I'm like, because we've got two, and the banks are telling us we can't earn any money. And we earn incredible money. So I'm like, there's got to be a trick or a hack. I'm like, what is it? And then, yeah, not long after that, saw that video. And then not long after that, met you. And I was like, this was the missing light bulb.
Yeah. Also, just for those who are watching, Mal's loving the trust things. It's not just about the trust thing. Yes, there's a
No,
big
it's
component
not.
to it, but there is a lot more to it. Like you have to buy properties cheaper, you've got to find high yields and all this sort of stuff.
Totally. Yeah, and you've
And
got to
you
have, and I
have
think the other massive thing with you as well was like having the team that can actually find those properties because they've, like how else do you go and do that as an individual? Like you only know the suburb that you're in. Let alone, like we've just brought in South Australia and a suburb I've never even visited before. Like there's no way I would have found that property on my own. I didn't even know like what that suburb really was, let alone that it was
yeah.
one of the top performing growth suburbs in the whole country.
Yeah, let alone not understanding where are the rules and the regulations as to what you can ask the seller to fix after a pest and building inspection report, or even
Exactly.
understanding what is a property actually worth. Just because the real estate agent's got it up for sale for 400,000, it could be actually
Yeah,
worth 550. So you've got to
that's
really
it.
understand the valuation of that, and also
And
the
even
scale
we had
sales skills.
sorry, go on.
I was just going to say the sales skills to go up against the sales reps. Like most Aussies, I think they're so dumb. When like in America they often use buyers agents. It's such a normal thing over there. Whereas here in Australia, they're like, I'm going to sign up to the biggest deal of my life, aka buying a house, and they're going to do it all on their own. And you're going up against a sales rep who's been trained for years to get you to
Mm.
pay more. So I just don't understand that logic of that. I'm like, you could just overpay $10,000 and you wouldn't even know it. So, sorry, what were we going to say?
I was just going to say it was also really useful at settlement having a team that was all talking to each other. So if I think about how we brought property previously, like we were organizing all the different parts and like we were having to talk individually to the company that was going to manage the property, the conveyancer, the broker, the accountant, the buyer's agent. Whereas with the property that we just purchased, settlement got pushed out a week because they sent all the paperwork was manual. It did my head in. I'm not gonna lie. I had paperwork all over my office. I was like, what is even going on here? And then anyway, so there was how wild's this? There was a document that was missing that I didn't even need to sign that pushed out settlement for a week. And anyway, but I didn't have to worry about it because the the mortgage broker spoke to the conveyancer and then the buyer's agent spoke to the seller and it was all just sorted out and I was like, oh sweet, like I just get to see that it settles in a week's time and I have to re-sign or rescan some documents because they couldn't even print the piece of paper that was missing that didn't have my signature on it had to all be rescanned by me. I was like, well, what is this in this 21st century? I'm like,
Yeah.
this is wild, right? But the fact is like I didn't actually like have to worry about settlement not going through and being a week later because of all the support that we had from the team and the team all knowing each other.
Yeah, and for those who are also watching this, just to let you know, when you're going through the process of a trust structure, which is what Melissa did, is that it adds a lot larger layer of complexity around the documents, and a lot of it has to be for some lenders will allow you to do digital signing and with lawyers and all of this sort of stuff, whereas with some it has to be formalized in paper and liquid signing, which is what Val obviously had to go through, what she was talking about.
Yeah, and I was
And
not
also,
expecting it because we'd never done that before, and I had paperwork. Oh, and because they posted something, and then there were pages missing in the postage package, so then I had to print them. So I had this email, then there were duplicates. Anyway, so I had like a paper maze all over my office, and yeah, there was like one page missed that I didn't have to sign that wasn't sent back manually, and yeah, it paused the whole thing. It was
oh
funny
my
looking
goodness.
back on it.
And also, a lot of people freak out about extensions on settlements and stuff like that. You don't need to freak out. Like in our world, uh, 90% of extensions that I've seen So where we've needed to ask the seller to say, hey, we're not going to be able to settle on this date. We're going to need to ask you nicely. Can you please allow us an extra, usually three to five business days, in order to get these documents across the line? 90% of the time, or it's probably higher, 95% of the time, the seller's like, yeah, sure, have another week. That's fine. And then worst case scenario on top of that is usually the seller will then just charge you a small fee of usually somewhere between $140 to $150 per day that you're delayed. So it's not the end of the world. But you didn't have to pay a fee. You didn't cop a fee for that,
No, we
for the
didn't.
extension? No, see. There you go. Cool. What else was an interesting part of your process that you recall?
Um, Look, I think that was probably the most interesting part. Like, yeah, it was just going through. We weren't used to that whole manual paperwork process.
Mm.
Oh, I'd say the other part that was interesting actually was when they found a property, actually having a look at all of the data behind things and yeah, like really seeing how that property like maps out over a period of time and what the growth is going to be because previously for us that was very much a guessing game and it was great that we guessed right in Brisbane, but there was really no certainty over our decision other than like a gut feel of like Brisbane's one of those places that hasn't really popped yet and I feel like we're getting in at the right time. So it was so much more comforting doing that with actual data behind the decision and the fact that I didn't even have to like go and get any of that data, it was just given to me through the team that you put people in contact with was even better. And then being able to go to you and say, hey, what do you think about this? And then you were like, oh, go and ask them this and get them to do that because they've missed that process. So it was like that extra level of certainty because not only did we have the data from the buyer's agent and they specialize in this, but then also having you look over it and you do this every single day, like for me to like there's no way I could possibly have that knowledge like as one individual person like no matter how hard I worked or how hard I tried. So yeah, it was really nice to see all of that play out in the process and yeah, and exciting to be able to do it again and also be looking at it with our super as well, and that's been a whole nother thing is like okay great, so we're doing this with like our personal trusts, but we've got all this money in super. Like, why the heck are we not applying this same strategy to super? And super is a little bit different, but you know, the same concept can still apply in terms of leveraging property.
Amen. Well, I'm so happy for you that the process of seeing all of the data made you feel so much more confident in where you're putting your money. Because it is funny, like most Aussies do. They're like, yeah, you just make money, right? So just buy it and like fucking fingers crossed and hope and pray. And I'm like, oh fuck, hope and pray is not a strategy. So yeah, I think that's one of the big things, especially with generators. If you're into human design, a lot of you guys need to see the data to make you feel comfortable and confident in what you're doing. It's like a sure way of saying, oh yeah, I'm going to buy this property for 400,000. By year two it's going to be worth 520,000. By year five it'll be worth 560,000. These are your actual numbers. So by year five you could be very conservative. You will make $255,000 in terms of capital growth in 5 years in your sleep.